What's up, guys? Welcome to Q&A Mondays. I'm Thad Barnette. Today's video, we're gonna talk about 7 things that you need to know before ordering metal sheet and coil from Sheffield Metals. This is really gonna help the Sheffield sales team process your order efficiently, make sure you get exactly what you need. Today, I've got Jon from Sheffield to help me out. Thanks for being here, Jon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Thad.
For sure. So there is a guide that you can download. I'll leave a link in the description that talks about all 7 of these items. We're going to go into detail about each one of those. Starting with material, color, thickness, and type. Jon, what are some things that people need to keep in mind, when they're on the phone, when they're filling out an order sheet with you guys about the material type?
Yeah, so a lot of times, when a customer calls in, they're going to have a good idea whether or not they're looking for a 24 gauge or 26 gauge material. We can kind of help walk you through that process to kind of determine what might be a little bit, might be the best option for your project. And then we're going to talk about, what color and then also what thickness you're looking for, or your width. So we do, we can slit to width and cut to length at our facility here, usually like a 16, a 20, or a 24 inch cut width. So those are going to be some of those first questions that we're going to kind of dive into. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as possible, but if I do need to refer, someone to our technical department, we have a great team. Jeff and Dave, there's a form on the website to fill out. If there's anything, kind of past my expertise, I'm going to direct you towards the technical team.
So let's talk about, the other thing is, Sheffield also supplies aluminum. You're based out in Cleveland, but, across the country, across Sheffield, several locations, aluminum is stocked as well. So those kind of thicknesses will be needed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Being up here, we get aluminum orders from time to time. It is a little bit more prevalent down south, closer to the coast. 032, 040, 050 aluminum options. We can always check stock, see what we have, see available. If we don't have it up here, we can do, get that material transferred from our Ackworth facility. But it is an option as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so let's talk about coil dimensions a little bit. So when we order coil from Sheffield Metals, the guys in the shop pick a master coil that is a certain width and then cut it to whatever the customer width is required. But there's some standard widths, that Sheffield deals with. Why are there standard widths?
Yeah, so our standard cuts are basically based off of the size of the master coil. So our standard setups are 16, 20, and 24, and our masters are usually around 40 and 48 inches wide. And we do have a minimum run length off the slitter of 100 linear feet. Say you call and place an order, you want 20-inch coil. Essentially, they're going to take that 40-inch master and cut it right down the middle on 20 inches. So you're ultimately going to end up with 200 linear feet of material coming off the slitter. That's kind of why we have those standard setups. We do, we can also do custom widths. You just let us know what that is. You may incur a drop fee, whatever that drop amount is, and also maybe a slight setup fee. But it is something we can do as well.
Okay. And because, they're cutting a master coil in half, basically, every pair of coils needs to have the same linear footage. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
The other thing that I think it's important to know is when you're ordering, you have to specify whether you're ordering in square footage or linear footage, because that can kind of get mixed up there if you don't specify.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, we're going to figure out how much material you're looking for, whether you're calling in saying your linear feet and your width. We have formulas and conversions that we can walk through, to make sure, because all of our orders in our system are going to go in square footage. That's just kind of how our system works here. But yeah, if you're, sometimes even the old school guys know pounds, they're wanting to order pounds. We do have conversions and formulas that we can go through to figure out what that ultimate total of material is needed for the project.
Yeah, and another reason why you need to know the weight of the coil is your roll forming machine's limitations. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so anytime we get a new customer calling in, one of the most important questions that we ask is, what's your max coil weight? What can your machine handle on the rack? Sometimes that can be anywhere from 800 pounds to up to 2,000 pounds. So just depending on what the customer prefers, what their machine can handle, just having that information and not, ready for us is going to be super helpful with us, producing your order to your kind of your specifications, how you prefer your material. And it's just helpful for us to know as well.
All right, so let's talk about cut to length for a second, talk about flat stock. You're going to need to determine the right number of sheets to order for your project. So what are some standard sizes of sheets, and do you offer any other sizes?
Yeah, so our CTL cut to length line is typically set up for a 4x10 sheet. We also, we've done orders of 4x8 sheets as well. So just let us know what length you're looking for, see if we can accommodate that. But I would say standard, our standard sheet length is a 10 foot by 4 foot wide sheet that's coming off the machine. And when it comes to sheets, we do have a loose pull system. So if a customer calls in and I'm just looking for 1, 2, a couple sheets, we do have a good selection of stock on the rack back there that, our guys can pull just directly off the rack. We do have a minimum of 3 sheet or a maximum of 3 sheets for a loose pull order. Say you place that order, you come up to our facility, we can load you up to 3 sheets without putting that on a skid. Anything over 3 sheets, we will put on a skid, and anything less than 25 sheets, there is a small skid charge.
So another thing that Sheffield deals in is accessories. So it's important to know what accessories you're purchasing and that they match your engineering if you have engineering requirements for your project. So tell me a little bit about the accessory ordering process.
Yeah. So basically, when you're placing your order for your coil or sheet, usually before we wrap up the call, we're going to ask, do you need any accessories? Do you need clips? Do you need any pop rivets, fasteners, butyl tape, paint, anything like that? A lot of times it's very beneficial to place that accessory order with your coil because we can ship the accessories just inside of the coil or, with that shipment. It's going to save on any additional shipping costs that you may incur later on down the road or even ordering from somebody else. But yeah, like in terms of engineered profiles, those specific profiles have gone through testing with specific clips and specific fasteners. And those are all going to need to match up to meet that engineered qualification.
Let's talk about lead times. How is a lead time determined? What do you guys typically deal with? And in standard orders, how long does it take to get material?
If we have the material in stock, we always tell customers expect around a 3 to 5 day lead time in terms of getting that material produced. So from the date of the purchase order or the order that we receive, if that material is in-house, we're going to get that produced and ready to ship within 3 to 5 days. If the material is out of stock or maybe located somewhere else, we will notify you. There may be an increased lead time for this specific project, whether that's a coil transfer or we're having something brought in from the paint line. And then, in that kind of case, we get with our ops team to figure out, when's this getting painted? When are we expected to receive it? And then, in those situations, we make sure to be very, stay on the same page with the customer, let them know what to expect. But a lot of times, I would say, standard situation, the material's in stock, it's going to get produced within 3 to 5 days. And then we are going to ship that material out. We'll send the tracking if we need to or anything like that.
So Sheffield does stock all the standard colors and everything that you're discussing for standard orders, and we really try hard to keep an inventory that can support our customers, on an average daily basis. But if I'm a contractor that has a huge project coming up, an absolute massive project, the more time that Sheffield has, to know that that's coming up and we're gonna have to source that material, the more it's gonna help make sure that that material arrives on time.
And, in some of those situations where it's a larger project, we might not have all the material in the building to process, but we can at least get it going, get that production started, kind of send out what we have to get you rolling on your project as we wait for more material to come in. But yes, absolutely. More heads up is always helpful and beneficial for us for sure.
The last thing on my list is when you're ordering, make sure you include all the correct information about your company. What is the important info that you guys need to know to make sure that an order is fulfilled?
So if you're calling in to place an order, we essentially just need to know what your company name is. Who am I talking to? First, last name, good phone number, a good email address, your bill to and ship to information. Sometimes those aren't the same. If you want to get set up on, terms or something with us, we can always send out a credit application to fill that out. And then, send that back to us. Our finance team will kind of handle all that. That's pretty much it. Bill to, ship to, your company name, and then we go from there.
All right, well, thanks very much, Jon. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, you can download the 7 things you need to know about ordering coil and sheets from Sheffield Metals. We have a handy guide right on the website. It's free to download. Comment down below if you have any other questions, and subscribe here to the Metal Roofing channel. As always, I'm Thad Barnette. We'll catch you next time.